Hey guys, we're using Ink Me Ink, my Pixelblading pigment, in our light brown, and our Pixel Me regular blade, not the curved, the Pixel Me Nano. And ready, set, go, we're gonna give her some beautiful brows. So I've learned with Pixelblading, it's actually best to do a 2-finger stretch. So up and down, and then prick. So up and down, prick. So we're going to do a 2-finger stretch like this. I love having my ink right here so everything is just right where it needs to be. And when you prick down, you're actually pricking down, not with much force, just barely kind of placing those needles into the skin, and then you lightly flick forward. Flick forward. And I'm going to have a separate video on latex as well as doing this on my hand to show you. But, okay, and we're just going to get a little bit of this pigment on the blade. It's really thick and creamy, love. And I like to kind of move the brow up to a stable place. A lot of times I'm pulling up on their face or down. There we go. And again, down, just barely setting the blade, and then flick forward. 1, 2, 3. Then I'm going to move. 1, 2, 3. There's our first stroke, our first pixel stroke. One, two, three. One, two, three. You're really listening for that pricking sound. And I start these patterns out pretty airy. And how are you doing pain-wise, lovely?
Perfect.
Good. Usually with our numbing technique.
I can't feel anything.
Really? Yes. I say usually with our numbing technique, people do pretty well. And her hair really flows sideways through here, so I'm starting to turn my strokes. I do have a coarse. See how the skin was bouncing when I'm pushing here? So you want to pull it up until it's not bouncing. Perfect. I do have a separate course on how to do custom patterns to follow their hair flow. It's bouncing a little bit, so I'm gonna get a better stretch. I tend to do kind of more long flowing strokes with Pixelblading because it just automatically looks softer. Where I feel like if you do shorter strokes with microblading, it helps them not look so plasticky. But because Pixelblading is so soft and airy, you can do longer strokes. And you can see like she just has really good elasticity, and so the biggest challenge is just to get that good stretch. So if you need to push and pull wherever you need to go, just make sure you have a good tight stretch. There we go, that's better. I'm probably dipping a little bit more than I need to. But that's all right. I don't know if you can see how lightly I'm working on her tails. The skin is thinner here. So you basically just barely set the needles down onto the skin and then flick forward. There's no pressure happening here. Okay, so we have our zone 1, which is coming up, and then as it starts to move over, we move into zone 2 and 3. A lot of this is kind of moving down, so now we're going to work here, and I'm going to do my spine strokes, connecting the bottom to where it's flowing sideways, and then we'll fill everything in a little bit. Look at how much I'm twisting and turning her brow here. Seriously, guys, do whatever you need to get a good stretch. This also applies to microblading. Skin is naturally so tight through here that there's like so little stretching. And you'll get a client here and there that you just barely have to stretch with, and it's kind of nice. Okay, so I've got my base strokes in, so now I'm just going to go through and fill, doing some Y strokes here. Again, that's part of my flow boot camp. The coolest part about this is as long as you're following their hair flow, unlike microblading, like if everything flows together and touches each other, it's okay. It's not going to make the stroke not heal well. I know I'm going to want to add in some detail blender strokes through these tails. Kind of like here. But I'm going to save this one for after I clean off the ink because I just want to really be able to place those cleanly. And I worked just a little too messy there. Okay, then the last thing I love to do is just pull up and lightly tap just to give a really clean underline here. I'm having to stretch on her a little more than the average, so I don't know how well our outline will stay, and like obviously it's still better than not using Matte Block and Miracle Marker, but it might not be quite as amazing as it usually does. So just in case, I'm doing a little bit of an underline pricking to make sure it holds in place super duper well. Love. So now we're just going to take our micro tip and with a tiny bit more pigment, just lightly scrub in our pigment. I use water wipes or baby wipes. And here's a huge trick. Ready? So you don't just wipe, you first blot. So pressure. And this is a huge trick to putting more pigment into the skin and not wiping it away. And then once it's almost clean like this, you wrap it around your finger. That's our first pass on this brow. And I'm just going to apply some more numbing on top. And then we'll work on our other brow. And we're just going to do the same thing on this side. Lay in our first pass. Stretching the center area is like tough on her. So we're gonna pull her all the way up. My gosh, guys, these are extra small gloves, and look at, I have the world's like most baby hands. It's so stupid. Make sure that your gloves, like, you get it really tight on your stretching fingers, and that'll help. Okay, anyways. Yeah, I'm a ring size 4. What is that? Like literal child size. Okay, so we're gonna stretch up, pull up. There we go. Usually I can do a 2-finger up and down stretch, but I'm having to do more of a 3-finger with her because I'm having to reposition with a finger, like pull with a finger and then stretch with 2. Pull, stretch. I try to get about 90% of my strokes in on first pass. I think we're more like 80, but that's okay. So we're just gonna do the same thing, scrub it in, blot it off, and then put on our numbing. Then we'll start working on the other brow. Okay, so we just wiped off our numbing. So now we're just gonna see what we got so far. So I'm gonna move the hair out of the way. Can you see that? That's just some really, really light pixel strokes. I'll try actually going like this. So now we're just going to go over these again. Again, there's some kind of gappiness over here we've got to fill in. So I'll really focus on our tails and just really getting some nice crispness in our centers. And we'll just keep building up this brow. So just exact same thing. Just like microblading, carefully going over your same strokes. They can be a little hard to see, so just stop and move the hair. If you kind of tilt it left and right, then usually you can catch it, or sometimes I'll use my finger to hold the hair over. Stretch is still important. Usually the second pass goes a bit quicker because you're mainly just tracing. If you ever have a client where you just didn't get much in, just use that base pass as, just consider it kind of light, airy shading, and then just go in and lay in your strokes. Again, nice thing about microblading, you don't have to worry about if they accidentally crossed. You're not gonna damage their skin by doing that. As long as your outline's still there. Thank you, Matte Block and Miracle Marker. Then that second pass, you can just go in and lay in your strokes. If worst case, you just really can't see them. But usually they're there, you just have to move the hair. There's Alright, I'm gonna finish up this brow on hyperspeed and then go do the second pass on this brow. And then we're gonna peel off our matte block and remove a little bit of our outline and kind of see where we're at. This brow is probably done aside from some perfecting work. So again, I'm going to blot and kind of, if you do just a light twist as you blot, it helps get the pigment into the skin. But we want to go ahead and peel off the matte block at this point. So what you want to do is take a micro tip and help kind of get it started like this. And then you can just peel it off. And once you get most of it off, you can just use a baby wipe. There we go, and now we're ready to do our perfecting work, and then this brow is done. So now that we're down to like our perfecting, I'm first gonna do an ink bath. So this is how I do this. I go side to side like this on both sides, kind of scrubbing some pigment in. So side to side. Then we're gonna go up and down. Then lastly, we're gonna do little circles. And then I even go upward circles, so downward circles, upward circles. So we're just really getting extra pigment down in there. Okie doke. And then we finish it off with single-use packets of A and D. I'm also launching some aftercare called Heal Me that I'm so excited. I was just using it this last week and then I ran out of the samples that I made. But using that on top of this is even better. Even just a few drops on each brow on top. It basically acts as a barrier so that it's forcing this ink down. And then also in that you've got lavender and some other anti-inflammatories that are natural that just kind of will help the healing process start right here before they even leave the table. This is also going to calm down redness and calm down lymph production, which is in turn going to give you better pigment retention. So this is what I call my pigment bake, pigment mask, and we're just going to leave this on here for 5 minutes, wipe off, and then we'll do our perfecting work. Super excited. Okay, so we're going to wipe our pigment mask off. There we go. Really helps deposit more pigment in there. Wonderful. And we'll do a scan. We need to pluck away a little bit more hair and then crisp up underneath just a little bit. Here's where we ended up. A lot more definition. And I'm pretty happy with these, aside from, if you look underneath here, it still just looks a tiny bit messy. And part of it is that I think I just need to underline these brows just to give them a little more pop. But I also have a few more hairs I think I need to pluck away under here. And then turn to the other. Nice, clean look. So I'm gonna set Kelsee up and show her either we can keep them thinner like this and then just remove a little bit more hair on this brow, or we can add one more row underneath and give them a little bit of a thicker look like this brow. So I'll let her make that decision and then we'll go in and do our perfecting work. So we're just doing some perfecting work. So starting with, I'm gonna pluck away some of these hairs under here. I always feel bad plucking. I feel like it's the most painful part about this. Okay, so now that we did our little finishing touches on plucking, we're just going to do our finishing touches on Pixelblading. So when I do perfecting work, I always like to do it with the outline off and kind of going back and forth brow to brow. I'll sometimes have them sit up and double check. So the main things I'm seeing right now is I need to build just a tiny bit more density through here. So I'm going to start there. So I'm basically going to use my finger to push aside the stroke. And just a tiny bit more. At the tops of these strokes. And then because she has a little bit more natural hair over here, I'm gonna do just a few little dots of shading in between up through here. And let's go ahead and wipe. Again with the blot and twist. And can you open for me? And check our balance. I feel like those look more balanced now. Do you see that I need just a tiny bit more height on this very center stroke over here? And then I just want to give some clean edge on both of these brows. So how we're going to do that is just brush up and lightly prick along this under edge. It gives a really soft, airy edge. And then I'm just going to add a tiny bit for density underneath. I'm going to go like this. And this will kind of taper in that underline. I'm going to do the same thing over here. But before I do that, I see just a little bit of perfecting I need to do in this tail. See how these lines are they're there, but they're still kind of light. So I'm just going to add in a little bit more pigment here. Okay, that should be enough through that tail. Now we're just going to do our underline. And that same little bit of density filling underneath here to taper that off. There we go. So that should be perfect for our perfecting work. So I'm just going to wipe this off and we'll do her final reveal. Can't wait to show you.